Former U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a surprise phone call. The conversation lasted about 2 hours. However, contrary to public expectations, there was no real progress in the Ukraine war. Rather, criticism poured in that it gave Russia strength.
On the 19th, local time, the two leaders, Trump and Putin, held a phone call for about 2 hours. Immediately after the call, former President Trump praised himself on his SNS TrueSocial, saying, "The tone and spirit of the conversation were excellent, and it went very well." He also drew a rosy future, including large-scale trade with Russia and the reconstruction of Ukraine after the end of the war. But what was the actual content of the call? Trump said, negotiations for a ceasefire and an end to the war must begin. But there was no pressure on Putin or specific conditions. He simply said, negotiations must take place between the two countries. In particular, Trump's remarks have increased disappointment, given that the recent negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul ended without any results other than a prisoner exchange. In addition, Trump mentioned the possibility that the Vatican could act as a mediator. Some have interpreted this as giving the impression that the United States is taking a step back and avoiding its responsibility as a mediator. On the other hand, President Putin reiterated his previous position after the call that day, saying, "We must eliminate the root cause of the crisis. That root cause is Ukraine's attempt to join NATO and pressure from the West." Russia has consistently claimed that Ukraine and the West provoked the war and has rejected the 30-day ceasefire proposal as buying time for Ukraine to reorganize. Putin announced immediately after the call that he and Trump had agreed to propose a peace agreement memorandum, but there were no details. There were no conditions. Kremlin spokesman Peskov said of the agreement, "We will exchange drafts and negotiate, and there is no deadline." Ukraine and the West see this statement as another delay and a unique Russian deception tactic. An interesting point is that the two leaders showed their friendliness by calling each other Donald and Vladimir during the call. The Kremlin emphasized this, and Russian media also interpreted it as Trump's support for direct talks between Putin and Zelensky. The nuance is that Trump has practically taken Russia's position. However, Western media took a completely different view. The New York Times criticized Trump for taking a step back from Ukraine's demand for an immediate ceasefire, and CNN strongly criticized him, saying, "Putin has shown that he does not need Trump." The Wall Street Journal emphasized that this call did not lead to any breakthrough, and the British Telegraph commented that Trump seems to have given up on his peace plan. In the end, the 2-hour call between Trump and Putin did not advance peace, but rather increased uncertainty.
The war is not over, and the solution is still in the mist. Time will tell whether this currency will be a turning point in history or just a political show.